We're diving into James Clear's Atomic Habits today.
Oh, yeah.
We've got excerpts from the book, and we're going to see how tiny changes
Right.
can make a big impact.
Yeah, it's amazing how he emphasizes compounding.
Right.
Like, he uses these analogies to really make it click.
Okay.
Like, the ice cube example.
Yeah.
You know, you apply heat.
Uh-huh.
Nothing seems to happen for a while.
Right.
And then, bam, you hit 32 degrees, and it just melts.
Melts away.
And habits are like that. It's that effort, even when you don't see the results.
Right. It's like those small 1% improvements that suddenly add up. And you're like, wow, how did that happen?
Yeah. And that's a big takeaway, I think. Your current habits, good or bad, are really shaping who you're going to become.
Absolutely.
But Clear doesn't stop there.
Right.
He challenges us to think beyond goals and focus on systems.
So this is where it gets interesting. Clear says goals have limitations.
Okay.
They make us put off feeling happy until we reach the goal.
Yeah.
And they create that either you succeed or fail mentality.
Right, right.
Instead, he suggests this system's first approach.
Yeah, it's about shifting that focus from the end result to the process.
Okay.
So instead of saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, you become the type of person who prioritizes healthy eating and exercise.
Yeah.
And it's those daily actions, that system, that create lasting change.
I like that.
Yeah.
So how do we actually build these systems?
Well,
Clear breaks down this concept called the habit loop.
Yeah.
It's a 4-stage cycle.
Okay.
Cue, craving, response, and reward.
Right.
He uses this example of baby birds pecking at red dots.
Oh, yeah?
On their parents' beaks.
It's fascinating.
To get food.
Yeah, it makes you think how deeply rooted is this loop, you know, in us.
Yeah.
Those baby birds just show how powerful that craving reward.
Cycle is...
Yeah, we're wired for it.
Not just in humans, but across species.
Right. How do we make it work for us?
Right.
Clear talks a lot about designing your environment.
He does?
He argues that our surroundings influence our behavior.
Oh, totally.
More than we realize.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Fast food restaurants are everywhere. So easy to grab some unhealthy food.
Totally. Clear also talks about Japanese workspaces.
Yeah.
Designed for maximum efficiency.
Oh, yeah.
Tools placed strategically to minimize wasted movement.
Interesting.
It's all about making that desired action the easiest one.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes this one space, one use.
Yes.
Like keeping work and personal life separate. Maybe having a designated office helps you mentally shift.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is where it gets personal.
Okay.
Think about your own environment. How can you redesign it to support good habits?
Maybe it's decluttering your workspace.
Oh, yeah.
Or reorganizing your kitchen.
Right.
What are those subtle environmental cues that might be influencing you?
That we don't even realize. Like, Clear points out those cues can become almost invisible because we're so used to them.
Wow.
He suggests this technique called pointing and calling.
Pointing and calling?
Yeah, like Japanese railway conductors.
Interesting.
You actually say your actions out loud.
Okay.
To bring that awareness to those habits.
I like that.
Yeah, it's like creating this Habits Scorecard.
The scorecard.
Where you list your daily routines.
Okay.
And see if they're helping or hindering you.
So we're more aware of our habits now.
Right.
How do we make the good ones stick?
Well, Clear talks about making them obvious and attractive.
Obvious and attractive.
One strategy is habit stacking.
Okay.
You link a new habit to one you already do.
I see.
Like after I make my morning coffee, I'll meditate for 1 minute. So you're connecting that new behavior to a strong existing cue.
Piggybacking.
Exactly, something you already do.
Yeah, it increases the chances of it becoming a habit.
I like that.
Yeah.
But it's not just about our actions.
Right.
Clear says social influence plays a huge role.
Oh, it does.
We tend to imitate the habits of those around us.
Yeah. Close friends, the majority.
Makes sense.
And those we see as successful.
Like that quote.
Yeah.
You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah. A perfect example is the Polgar sisters.
Oh, yeah. The chess prodigies.
Yeah. Their dad, Laszlo, believed geniuses are made, not born.
Wow.
So he created this environment where chess was everything.
Wow. So their whole family.
They were homeschooled, surrounded by chess books constantly.
Right.
Practicing and competing.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
How contagious habits can be.
Totally.
If your friends are all into fitness, you're more likely to try it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or if your workplace have this stay late culture.
You might feel pressure to do the same,
right?
Even if it's not healthy.
Peer pressure.
So surrounding yourself with the right people can be a huge advantage.
Huge advantage.
Absolutely. Clear calls it the influence of the close, the many, and the powerful.
The close, the many, and the powerful.
We imitate those we admire.
Makes sense.
But it's not just about who we're with.
Okay.
Clear also emphasizes making good habits easy and satisfying.
So how do we make starting a new habit less daunting?
Less daunting. Well, Clear recommends the 2-minute rule.
2-minute rule.
You break down the habit into its simplest form.
Okay.
Something you can do in just 2 minutes.
Okay.
Instead of aiming for read for 30 minutes.
Right.
Start with read 1 page.
Read 1 page.
Yeah. You make the starting point so easy that you can't say no.
Okay.
You trick your brain into taking action.
Interesting.
Overcoming that initial resistance.
Makes sense.
Then once you've started, it's much easier to keep going.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. Claire also highlights rewarding yourself, even for small wins.
Right.
To make the habit more enjoyable.
Like transferring $50 to a vacation fund every time you skip eating out.
It's that immediate gratification that reinforces the behavior.
Even though the real benefit comes later.
Exactly. You know? The healthier you are, that trip to Europe.
Right.
It's about finding ways to make those good habits feel good in the moment.
Feel good in the moment.
Right.
That makes sense. But how do we bridge that gap?
So this raises an interesting question then.
Okay.
How do we bridge that gap?
Yeah.
Between instant gratification and long-term rewards.
Right. Because it's tough.
Clear argues that.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how our brains work.
Okay.
We need to make good habits feel more immediately satisfying.
Right.
While making bad habits more immediately uncomfortable.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about those times when we slip up? It's not always smooth sailing.
It's not always smooth sailing, no.
Right. Clear talks about habit tracking.
He does.
And having accountability partners.
Exactly. Habit tracking gives you visual proof of your progress.
Okay.
Which is incredibly motivating.
Yeah.
Seeing those successful days in a row can really keep you going.
It's encouraging.
It also makes the process more satisfying, like marking things off a to-do list.
Yeah.
Or putting an X on the calendar.
Right.
Gives you that little dopamine hit, which reinforces the behavior.
And then there's that power of having someone to answer to.
Yes. Having that accountability can really keep you on track.
Right. Clear mentions comedian Margaret Cho.
Yeah.
She does this daily song challenge with a friend.
That's awesome.
Knowing someone else is expecting you to show up.
Right.
It's a great motivator.
Huge motivator. And if you don't, there's that social cost.
Right. They might think you're unreliable.
Suddenly, it's not just letting yourself down.
Exactly.
It's hurting those relationships. It's about those relationships. Yeah. And what's fascinating is that even the possibility of that social consequence can be enough to keep us accountable.
Interesting.
Clear also talks about habit contracts.
Habit contracts?
Yeah. Football coach Brian Harris used one to lose 100 pounds.
Wow.
He set specific goals for his diet and exercise.
Right.
And there are consequences for messing up.
Like what?
Fines paid to his trainer, even having to wear a rival team's hat.
Oh, wow.
If he missed his sprints.
That's intense.
It's intense, but it clearly worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
So it seems like making those consequences immediate and real.
Yeah, making them real is key to breaking those bad habits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Clear goes beyond just breaking bad habits and building good ones.
He does.
He talks about aligning your habits with your ideal identity.
Yes. He argues that habits shape who you are.
Okay.
But who you believe you are also shapes your habits.
So it's like a chicken and egg.
It's a two-way street.
Our actions reinforce who we think we are.
Right.
And our beliefs about ourselves influence our actions.
And this leads to one of Clear's most important points.
Okay.
Focus on becoming the kind of person who achieves those things.
Okay.
Not just on achieving the things themselves.
Right. So like instead of...
So for example, if you want to exercise regularly, see yourself as an athlete.
Got it.
Or someone who values fitness.
Yeah.
That shift in identity then drives your actions.
So it's about acting like the person you want to become.
It's not so much about faking it.
Right.
But about aligning your actions with your aspirations.
I see.
Every small win, every time you act in line with your desired identity, reinforces that belief.
Reinforces that belief.
And as those beliefs get stronger,
right,
those actions become easier and more natural.
So how can our listeners start applying this idea?
That's a great question.
Of identity-based habits?
Maybe think about one area of your life.
Okay.
You want to improve your health, finances, relationships.
Right.
And ask yourself, what kind of person would excel in this area?
Right.
What habits would they have?
Okay.
Then start acting like that person one small step at a time.
One small step at a time.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
Tiny changes, big results.
Absolutely. And while choosing habits that align with your values is important, Clear also talks about finding your zone of genius.
Oh, yeah.
He calls it the Goldilocks rule.
Okay.
Habits are most enjoyable when they're challenging enough, but not too challenging.
It's like finding that sweet spot.
Exactly.
Where you're pushed, but not overwhelmed.
Right. If it's too easy, it's boring.
Right.
Too hard, and it's discouraging.
You give up.
But if it's just right, you get into that flow state.
You're the zone?
Where you're totally absorbed.
Yeah.
Time just flies by.
Totally. And it's about understanding your natural strengths, too.
Absolutely. Clear suggests habits are easier to build when they play to your strengths.
So you're playing a game where you've got an advantage.
Exactly.
Where your talents give you an edge.
Yeah. This is something to think about.
Okay.
What are those areas where your natural talents could help you build habits and excel?
Like maybe you're great at organizing.
Exactly.
Or love learning new things.
Yeah. Or you're good at helping others.
Right. Tap into those areas.
Absolutely.
And creating those habits will be easier.
It'll be much easier.
But Clear also points out, it's not just about finding the right habits.
Right.
It's about consistently showing up.
Yes, even when motivation dips.
Because that's the tough part.
It is. He shares this quote from an elite coach.
Oh, really?
Who said, at some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day doing the same lifts over and over and over.
Wow.
It challenges this idea that success is all about passion. Real mastery often means embracing the mundane.
Embracing the mundane.
Showing up even when you don't feel like it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right.
It's easy to be motivated at the start.
Yeah, when everything's new and exciting.
You're all gung-ho.
Exactly. But as that fades, that's when the real work begins.
That's when it gets tough.
That's when we need that discipline.
Right.
That ability to stick to the plan.
Even when we don't want to.
Even when we'd rather hit snooze or binge watch something.
Oh, yeah. Every time.
Right.
So true.
Exactly. Clear offers some practical tips for staying on track.
Like what?
When motivation dips.
Yeah.
Things like habit tracking, having those accountability partners.
Okay.
And making good habits as easy and satisfying as possible.
Right. So we've got to create those support systems.
You do.
For when our willpower just isn't enough.
Absolutely. But what about those bad habits that are so hard to break?
The ones we just can't seem to shake.
Even when we know they're not good for us.
Yeah. How do we deal with those?
Well, Clear's approach to breaking bad habits is all about making them invisible.
Invisible.
Unattractive.
Okay.
Difficult.
Difficult.
And unsatisfying.
So we make them impractical.
We do. The idea is to make those bad habits impractical.
So like removing those tempting snacks from your pantry.
Yeah, or unsubscribing from those email lists.
Oh, yeah, the ones that are always
right.
bombarding you with sales.
Exactly. It's about making those bad choices harder to make.
Right.
He gives this example of John Patterson.
Who's that?
Who bought the first cash registers for his saloon.
Oh, wow.
Because he discovered employees were stealing.
Oh, no.
The cash registers made it almost impossible to steal.
Oh, cow.
Because every transaction was recorded.
Interesting.
Theft disappeared overnight.
Wow.
Showing how a simple environmental change can drastically change behavior.
That's incredible.
It is.
It shows how powerful it is to design your environment to support your goals.
Absolutely. We often underestimate how much our surroundings influence our choices.
We really do.
But it's not just about our physical space.
Okay.
Clear talks about using technology to automate good habits and make bad habits harder.
So like using those apps.
Yeah, like setting up automatic bill payments.
Okay.
Scheduling transfers to your savings account.
Right.
Using website blockers to limit social media.
Oh, yeah. Block those distractions.
Or even using meal delivery services.
Yeah.
To avoid the hassle of grocery shopping and cooking.
So it's about automating the good stuff.
It is.
And making those bad habits harder.
Yeah, making them require more effort.
More effort to do the bad stuff.
Exactly.
It's about making technology work for you.
Absolutely. Instead of letting it distract you
and
steal your attention.
Steal your attention. It's like it's designed to do that.
It is.
So think about your own life. Are there any areas where you can automate those good habits?
Yeah, where can you make those bad ones harder to access?
Maybe setting a reminder to go for a walk.
Right. Or deleting those social media apps.
Oh, yeah, the ones you just mindlessly scroll.
Yeah, you find yourself mindlessly scrolling. Those small tweaks
Small tweaks
can have a big impact over time.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these small adjustments,
It is.
those seemingly insignificant changes to your routine and surroundings, can compound
over time
and lead to significant changes.
Exactly.
Just like those small gains the British cycling team made,
Right.
leading them to victory.
It all adds up.
It all adds up. And this brings us to Clear's final law of behavior change. Make it satisfying.
Make it satisfying.
We've talked about making good habits obvious, attractive, and easy.
Right.
And now it's about making them satisfying.
But we live in a world
Right.
where the rewards for good habits often take time to show up.
Delayed gratification.
It is.
It's tough.
That's true. And that's where understanding how your brain works comes in.
Okay.
We're wired to want rewards now.
Right now.
So we need to find ways to make good habits feel good in the moment.
Feel good in the moment.
Yes.
We talked about rewarding ourselves
It did.
for small wins.
Right.
But Clear takes it a step further.
He does.
He says real satisfaction comes from aligning your habits with your desired identity.
He reminds us that the feeling of satisfaction actually comes after the action.
Not before.
Not before.
We think it's going to come before.
We do. We're like, oh, I'll feel good, and then I'll do it.
Yeah, if I'm happy, I'll.
But it's actually the other way around.
Oh.
It's taking those actions that align with your values and goals.
Yeah.
Those actions then lead to feeling satisfied.
I see.
Which reinforces the behavior and strengthens your sense of self.
So it's a loop.
It is.
Your actions shape who you are.
Absolutely.
And who you are shapes your actions.
And by focusing on becoming the type of person who embodies those qualities, you create a system for lasting change.
So it's not about hitting that specific goal.
It's not about that end result.
Right. It's about
the journey.
Building a system of habits.
Exactly. A system of habits.
That supports your ongoing growth.
That supports your growth as a person.
I like that it shifts the focus from achieving specific outcomes to building a lifestyle that supports your well-being.
Your overall well-being.
It's about being the architect of your own life.
It is about designing systems and routines that lead to lasting fulfillment.
Lasting fulfillment. That's what we're all looking for.
That's what it's all about. And this brings us back to how can you use these ideas to build a life that's not just successful, but deeply satisfying? What small changes can you make today to get closer to the person you want to be?
Yeah, maybe it's taking that 2-minute action toward a goal you've been putting off, or reframing a tough task as a chance to grow. Remember, atomic habits are all about those tiny changes that can lead to amazing results over time.
Absolutely. It's about understanding that lasting change isn't a finish line. It's a journey of constantly improving and refining. And that brings us to a fascinating point. Clear makes the importance of reflection and refinement in building habits. He says we shouldn't just mindlessly repeat the same actions, but constantly try to improve our systems.
So it's not about setting it and forgetting it, but about always looking at what we're doing and adjusting our approach.
Exactly. He calls it the difference between being in motion and taking action. We often get stuck planning and strategizing, researching the perfect method without actually doing anything. It feels like progress without the risk of failing, but it stops us from getting real results.
That's so true. It's easy to fall into that analysis paralysis trap, overthinking everything and never starting. But Clear says it's better to start small, even if it's not perfect, and adjust as you go.
He emphasizes standardizing before optimizing. You can't improve a habit that doesn't exist. So first, make the habit consistent part of your routine. Once you have that base, you can experiment and see what works best for you.
So it's about balancing consistency with trying new things. Like once you've nailed the 2-minute version of a habit, you can start making it bigger and refining your technique.
Exactly. And this is where Clear's Goldilocks rule comes back in. He says habits are most enjoyable when they're just the right amount of challenging. So as you improve, keep pushing yourself, find those areas where you can grow.
This links back to identity-based habits. As we get better at something, our sense of self shifts, and we naturally seek out new challenges that fit that evolving identity. It's a constant cycle of growth and refinement.
As habits become routine, they can become less interesting and less satisfying. We get bored.
So many people struggle with this. How do we stay focused when that initial excitement wears off? Clear has some interesting ideas about how to fight boredom.
He highlights the role of variable rewards in keeping us motivated. Our brains love new and uncertain things. So when we add a little surprise or variety to our routines, it keeps us engaged and prevents us from getting stuck.
Like adding some spice to our lives instead of always going to the same gym, maybe try a new class or hike a different trail. It's about keeping things fresh and exciting.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be huge changes. Even small things can make a difference if you're a writer. Try writing in a different spot or listening to new music while you work. It's about finding those little things that spark your creativity and keep you going.
And this is something for you to consider. How can you add some variety to your routine? What small changes can keep things interesting and prevent boredom?
Hmm.
Maybe it's trying a new recipe, listening to a different podcast, or taking a new route to work. Think about those little tweaks that can add some novelty to your day. But even with variety, there will be times when we just don't feel like doing it. Motivation will go up and down.
This is where Clear's distinction between professionals and amateurs comes. And professionals stick to the plan, amateurs. Let life get in the way they show up, even when they don't feel like it. Think of athletes training even when they're tired, or writers sticking to their daily word count, even when they're not feeling inspired.
So it's about developing that discipline, that commitment to the process, even when it's not glamorous or exciting. It's about embracing the mundane parts of what we do.
Exactly. It's in those moments of showing up, even when we don't want to, that we build real resilience and mastery. And that brings us to a final thought for you. What's one small habit, one tiny change that you can commit to today that will move you closer to the person you want to be?
It doesn't need to be a huge change, just a small step in the right direction. Remember, consistency is key. Like Claire says, success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations.
And if you're looking for more guidance on this journey of building habits and changing your life, we highly recommend James Clear's Atomic Habits. It's packed with practical strategies and insights that can help you reach your full potential, one small change at a time.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you've gotten some great takeaways and feel inspired to start making those tiny changes that can lead to incredible results in your own life.